Lily had a secret friend that helped her understand the world. A simple wooden flute, carved for her by her grandfather from the branch of a willow tree. It wasn't a fancy instrument, but when Lily played it, it seemed to speak a language that everyone and everything could understand. She could play a cheerful, skipping tune that would make the squirrels in the trees chatter and dance along. She could play a slow, swaying melody that would make the shy deer step a little closer, their ears twitching with curiosity. And she could play a soft, gentle lullaby that would make the buzzing bees in her mother's flower garden grow quiet and still, lulled into a peaceful rest. Her flute was her voice, her way of talking to the forest and the river and the sky. And every evening, when she heard the deep, sad hum of Mount Cello, she felt a great urge to play for it. She would sit on her front porch, the cool mist swirling round her ankles, and play her kindest, most gentle songs. She hoped that her music would travel up the mountain and bring a little bit of comfort to its lonely heart. But the mountain's hum never changed, and the sad, grey mist always came. Nestled between rolling green hills and a quiet, sleepy forest was a beautiful little valley. It was a place of soft moss, cheerful wildflowers, and a sparkling, clear river that giggled as it tumbled over smooth stones. In this valley lived a little girl named Lily. Lily loved her home, but there was a great and gentle mystery that hung over it. At the very end of the valley stood Mount Cello, a mountain so vast and ancient that the clouds would often rest upon its shoulders, and every evening as the sun began to set, the mountain would begin to hum. It was not a scary sound, but a deep, slow, and incredibly sad tune, like the song of a lonely whale calling out in the deep ocean. As the mountain hummed its sorrowful lullaby, a soft, grey mist would creep down from its slopes, filling the entire valley in a thick, quiet blanket until morning. The people of the valley had grown used to the mist and the mountain's nightly song. They simply said, "The mountain is singing itself to sleep." But Lily, who loved music more than anything, did not think it was a sleepy song. She thought it was a lonely one, and it made her own heart feel a little bit sad in return. One evening, the mountain's hum was sadder than ever before. It was a deep, mournful sound that seemed to carry a heavy sigh within it, and the mist that rolled into the valley was colder and thicker than usual. The wildflowers in Lily's garden seemed to droop their heads in sorrow as the mist touched them. Lily, sitting on her porch, felt a single, perfect tear roll down her cheek, not for herself, but for the great, lonely mountain. She could feel its sadness so strongly tonight, it was as if it were her own. In that moment, she made a decision. It wasn't enough to play her music from far away. If the mountain was too sad to come to her song, then she would have to take her song to the mountain. A little shiver of nervousness went through her, but it was quickly replaced by a strong feeling of determination. The mountain was her friend, even if it didn't know it yet, and she couldn't bear to listen to its sorrow for one more night without trying to help. She put her wooden flute carefully into the pocket of her dress, pulled a warm woolen shawl around her shoulders, and told her parents she was just going for a short walk before bed. But in her heart, she knew this was the beginning of a much bigger journey. She was going to climb Mount Cello and find the source of its sad, lonely song. Lily began to walk, leaving the warm lights of her village behind and heading towards the base of the great mountain. As she started to climb the winding path, the world grew quieter and sadder. The cheerful forest she knew at the valley floor gave way to trees that were silent and still, their leaves heavy with a damp, grey mist. The higher she climbed, the thicker the mist became, and the deeper the mountain's sad hum resonated in the air around her. It was no longer a distant sound. It was a feeling, a vibration that she could feel in the soles of her little shoes and in the depths of her chest. She saw that the little mountain flowers had not bloomed, their petals still tightly shut as if too sad to open. The talkative streams that usually chattered down the mountainside were slow and quiet, their water moving without its usual sparkle. The whole mountain was holding its breath, caught in a deep and ancient sorrow. Lily felt a great wave of empathy for the lonely mountain. It wasn't just humming a sad tune. Its very being was sad. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, took out her little wooden flute, and knew that her mission was more important than ever. She had to bring the happiness back to this beautiful, sleeping giant. After a long climb, Lily found a small, flat ledge, a quiet place to rest. She was now high up on the mountain's shoulder, surrounded by the thick, grey mist. The deep, sorrowful hum was very loud here, a constant, vibrating presence. She felt as though she was sitting right next to the mountain's heavy heart. She sat down on a mossy stone, took out her flute, and decided it was time to introduce herself. She didn't play one of her cheerful, skipping tunes. That would feel wrong in this place of deep sadness. Instead, she began to play the gentlest, most empathetic melody she knew. It was a simple song, a song of quiet understanding. It spoke, not of joy, but of companionship in sadness. Her notes were soft and clear, a single thread of warm, living sound in the cold, grey mist. She played of the beauty of the mountains, ancient rocks, and the wisdom of its old, silent trees. She played of the little valley below that loved the mountain, even when it was sad. She wasn't trying to drown out the mountain's hum or to force it to be happy. She was simply letting it know that it was not alone in its sorrow. She was adding her own small voice to its song, a quiet harmony of friendship. Lily played her gentle song for a very long time, her eyes closed, pouring all of her compassion into the simple melody. When she finally finished, the last note hung in the misty air for a moment before fading away. She sat in the silence, listening. At first, nothing seemed to have changed. The mountain's hum continued, its deep, sorrowful vibration as strong as ever. A little pang of disappointment went through her. Had the mountain not heard her? Had her song been too small to reach such a vast and ancient heart? But then, she noticed something. The hum was different. It was still sad, but there was a new note woven into it, a slight tremor of curiosity. And the thick, grey mist that surrounded her seemed to have thinned just a little. She could now see the faint outline of a pine tree a few feet away, a shape that had been invisible before. The mountain had heard her. It was listening. It was as if her quiet song had been a gentle knock on a long-closed door, and the great, sleepy giant behind it was beginning to stir, wondering who could be calling. This tiny sign of progress filled Lily with a huge wave of hope. She had made a connection now. She knew she just needed to make her song a little bigger. Lily knew her little flute, on its own, was not enough to fill the mountain's great heart with joy. A solo was beautiful, but this sad mountain needed an orchestra. It needed a chorus of happiness. She looked around at the silent trees and thought of the birds. Their songs were the cheeriest sound in the valley, but up here, in the heavy mist, they were all quiet, their feathers ruffled and their spirits low. She had to remind them how to sing. She put her flute to her lips again, but this time she didn't play her own melody. She began to play the song of the mountain finch, a cheerful, trilling tune full of skips and happy chirps. Her notes were so perfect that a small, grey finch, huddled on a nearby branch, lifted its head in surprise. It tilted its head, listening, and then, tentatively, it answered her with a single, quiet chirp. Lily played the phrase again, a little more brightly this time, and the finch answered with 2 chirps. She then played the song of the valley robin, a series of clear, cascading notes. A robin, hidden in the mist, sang the notes back to her. She was not just playing music, she was having a conversation, reminding the birds of the happy songs they had forgotten in the mountain's sadness. The sound of the first few birds singing was like a signal of hope. Soon, other birds, hearing the familiar calls, began to emerge from the misty branches. A whole flock of finches joined in, their combined chirping a shower of happy, trilling notes. The robins added their clear, beautiful voices, creating a rich and lovely harmony. A woodpecker, inspired by the sound, began to tap a gentle, rhythmic beat on a hollow branch. Lily smiled and continued to play, her flute now the lead instrument in a growing orchestra. She wove their different songs together, creating a new melody, a song of friendship and shared joy. The music was no longer just a small thread of sound, but a beautiful, living tapestry of notes that began to push back against the heavy silence of the mountain. The birds, who had been so quiet and sad, remembered the joy of singing together. They fluffed up their feathers and sang with all their hearts, their happy chorus a direct contrast to the mountain's sad, low hum. They were a small army of happiness, and their song was a brave declaration that even in the saddest, greyest of places, there was still room for joy and music. The sound was beautiful, and it was growing with every moment. As the beautiful chorus of birdsong filled the air, the mountain listened, and this time its response was much clearer. The deep, sorrowful hum began to change. The single, sad, purple note began to waver, and then new notes began to weave themselves into the sound. Flecks of warm, golden light started to appear within the deep purple sound waves, like the first stars appearing in a twilight sky. The very vibration in the air began to feel less like a sigh and more like a curious, deep breath. The mist, pushed back by the power of the happy song, receded even further, revealing more of the mountainside. Lily could now see entire groves of pine trees and the dark, wet rocks of a small waterfall that had been hidden before. The mountain was not just listening, it was responding. It was like a great, sleepy heart being warmed by the cheerful music, the cold sadness beginning to melt away. Lily knew they were on the right track, but she also knew the song was not yet complete. The birdsong was beautiful, but it was all high and cheerful. To truly balance the mountain's deep, low hum, they needed a voice just as deep and just as powerful to join their orchestra. Lily thought for a moment. What had a voice as deep and as ancient as the mountain itself? And then she knew, the wind. The wind, which had been so still and quiet, held captive by the mountain's sadness. She had to invite it to join their song. She turned to her chorus of birds. "Sing as loud and as beautifully as you can," she instructed them. "We need to wake the wind." The birds, understanding, sang with all their might. Then Lily put her flute to her lips and played a single, long, pure, and powerful note. It wasn't a complex melody, just one perfect, sustained sound that she held for as long as her breath would last. It was a note of pure invitation, a call to the silent air. She played it out into the valley, a clear, golden thread of music. At first, nothing happened. Then, far below, the leaves on the highest treetops began to tremble. A low, whistling sigh answered her call. The wind was waking up. It began to rise, a slow and powerful current, flowing up the slopes of the mountain. Towards them, drawn by the irresistible pull of the beautiful music. It was coming to join their orchestra. The wind arrived not as a chaotic gust, but as a deep, gentle, and musical presence. It swirled into the clearing where Lily and the birds were, its voice a low, resonant hum that was almost as deep as the mountain's own. It was the perfect bass note for their growing symphony. Lily smiled and changed her tune, playing a slow, flowing melody that rose and fell like the hills of the valley. The wind, as if it had been practicing for this very moment, immediately understood. It wove its own voice around her melody, creating a beautiful, deep harmony. Its low whistle flowed perfectly with the high, sweet notes of the flute, while the cheerful chirping of the birds danced like sparkling highlights on top. The sound was magnificent. It was a complete and perfect song, with high notes and low notes, with rhythm and melody, with the joyful voices of the small creatures and the ancient, powerful voice of the wind itself. It was the true song of the valley, a song of perfect harmony and friendship. The music was now so powerful and so beautiful that it washed over the entire mountain, a great, warm wave of sound and happiness, carrying a message of pure, unadulterated joy directly to the mountain's listening heart. This beautiful, complete song was the final key that unlocked the mountain's heart. As the music washed over its peak, the last of the deep purple sound waves dissolved, replaced entirely by a brilliant, beautiful, and warm golden hum. The sound was no longer sad or lonely. It was a deep, resonant, and happy thrum, like the purr of a giant, contented cat. And with the change in its song, the last of the grey mist evaporated into the night air as if it had never been. For the first time in a very long time, the slopes of Mount Cello were completely clear under the light of the moon and stars. The forests looked greener, the waterfalls sparkled with a new brilliance, and the rocky face of the mountain itself seemed to change. The lines of sorrow softened, and the sleeping, sad expression in the rock contours shifted and reformed into a gentle, peaceful, and loving smile. The mountain was awake, and it was happy. It added its own deep, golden hum to the orchestra of the flute, the birds, and the wind, creating a sound so beautiful and so full of peace that it seemed to make the very stars in the sky shine a little brighter. The great, lonely giant was lonely no more. The happy, golden hum of the mountain, now joined with the beautiful song of the orchestra, flowed down into the valley below. The people of the village, tucked in their beds, heard the new sound in their sleep. Their worried dreams of mist and sorrow were replaced by dreams of sunshine, music, and gentle happiness. The flowers in the gardens, which had been drooping, now lifted their heads and seemed to glow with a soft, inner light. The river, which had been giggling before, now seemed to be singing along. The entire valley was filled with a deep and abiding sense of peace and joy. From her high perch on the mountain, Lily could see and feel it all. She saw the soft lights in the cottage windows below seem to grow a little warmer. She felt the whole valley relax and let out a happy, contented sigh. She had done it. She had healed the mountain's lonely heart, and in doing so, she had brought a new and lasting happiness to her entire home. She knew that the mountain would never be so sad again, because now it had friends to sing with. It was no longer just the mountain that carried a tune. It was the whole world, and they were all part of its beautiful, harmonious song. As her song came to a gentle end, the birds and the wind quieted, their work complete. A peaceful, happy silence fell over the mountain, a silence now filled with the mountain's steady, contented hum. Lily was tired, but it was the best kind of tired, the kind that comes from creating something truly beautiful. As she prepared to make her way back down the path, a single, large, and perfect leaf, the color of the deepest emerald green, detached itself from the highest branch of an ancient tree on the peak. It floated down, not randomly, but with a gentle, deliberate grace, swirling on the air currents until it landed softly in her outstretched hand. It was a gift from the mountain, a silent and beautiful thank you for her kindness and her music. At the same time, the wind swirled around her one last time, giving her a gentle, grateful hug, and the birds all sang a final, cheerful chirp before flying off to their nests. Lily held the beautiful, perfect leaf carefully. It felt warm to the touch, filled with the happy, living energy of the awakened mountain. It was a treasure she would keep forever, a reminder of the night she made a friend of a mountain and an orchestra of the wind. The journey back down the mountain was very different from the climb up. The path was no longer dark or sad, but bathed in the warm, golden hum and the bright, clear light of the happy moon. The mist was completely gone, and the stars above twinkled with a brilliant clarity. The mountain flowers had all opened their petals, and their sweet scent filled the air. The little streams chuckled and laughed happily as they danced down the mountainside. The forest was alive with the gentle, sleepy sounds of a contented night. Lily walked with a light step, her heart feeling as full as the moon in the sky. She no longer needed her flute to speak to the world. She felt as though she could hear its happy song with her whole being. When she finally saw the lights of her own cottage, they looked warmer and more welcoming than ever before. She slipped quietly back into her home, her parents still sound asleep, dreaming happy dreams. She went to her room and placed the beautiful emerald green leaf from the mountain in a special little box where she kept her most precious treasures. It was a perfect end to a perfect adventure. And so, the valley was filled with the mountain's happy music every night. A beautiful lullaby born from the kindness of a little girl. Now, it is your turn to find the music in your own quiet room. Close your eyes, listen to your gentle breathing, and drift off to sleep. Good night. If you enjoyed our fable tonight, we hope you'll join us again. Please like and subscribe to Bedtimes Fable to help us share more gentle stories with the world. Sweet dreams.